I'm Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers. Welcome to our show. Today we have our guest, Alison Weir. She was with us for 2 shows. She gave us a lot of information about if Americans knew. So today she is with us to give us more details and more information about the topic between Israeli-Palestinian issue, aiming for peace. We have also our guest, Mr. Joe Hawley.
Nice to be here.
Nice to have you here. So let him introduce himself to you. Will you please introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Joe Hawley. I'm an American Jew, an American veteran. My wife's a veteran. 2 of my 3 sons are veterans. As a matter of fact, just today I got a Bible from my oldest boy who told me he took it to the House of Abraham and prayed over it and sent it to me. And I'm looking forward to having him home in October, November, sometime like that. It's his 2nd tour in Iraq.
What Bible was that? Which kind? Which?
Oh, it's actually a King James Bible. It's the only Bible he could get his hands on. But the idea was that he was able to bring it, take it there to the House of Abraham and send it to me with a nice inscription inside that brought both my wife and I to tears. To us, it doesn't really matter which Bible. Mm-hmm. It's the thought that counts. That you love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Same basic.
And that's the basis for having a human life.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I believe, Mr. Joe also is a member of Toastmaster. We are friends and members of Toastmaster, and that's the way I met Mr. Joe. And it happened that Toastmaster mission, similar to my organization mission, as an idea to teach everybody the same and put thoughts together, let people meet each other, dialogue and communication is the basic thing. And I learned a lot from Joe and his wife Mary also.
That's very kind of you.
We learn really a lot of things from each other, specifically the other side of the world or the other religious or the other idea in politics. So when we discuss matters, we learn more and more about each other. We become closer. And that's why we are here today to ask about something we don't know or something we know, to give it to others to learn about it.
Okay,
that's
that
why we have this event tonight together, and to let Joe tell us also about what he knows or what he
thinks
or saw recently from the Middle East. He visited so many areas, and for you know a lot about that topic particularly.
Well, it'll be interesting that you're a veteran, because I grew up in a military family.
Oh my!
I was born at West Point.
That's wonderful.
My father was a career Air Force officer, and I have several uncles that were career military, Army, Navy. One cousin, Marines. So
that's wonderful.
And something I had. It's very interesting growing up, because, as I say, I lived on military bases much of my life. I had never heard about the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty.
Oh.
Have you heard about that?
I've actually read something about that, yeah.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. What it is just tell in case the listeners don't know about it, the viewers. Israel attacked a U.S. Navy ship and tried to sink it with every man aboard. It was a crew of almost 300. What they did end up doing was injuring or killing a great many, 2/3 of the crew, 200.
Well, I don't know whether this is going to turn into an indictment of Israel. I hope not. I'm not in a position. I know that I've read an account of that, and I know that there, as a matter of fact, there's been thousands of people injured in Iraq and Afghanistan as a result of friendly fire.
Oh.
War in and of itself, I think, is pretty foolish.
Well, let me get to the specifics on this. It is the Israeli claim that it was a mistake. But as an American veteran, I'm sure you agree with me, we should listen to our own American veterans that were on board the ship. And they all say that it was clearly intentional, that they were flying a large American flag, it was shot down. Then they hoisted an even larger flag, one of those ones that you use for parades or something, so it was extra, extra large. That was also shot down. What's also come out...
I know plenty of people who've had artillery come in on them. When the spotter plane flew over, you think that because you're standing there, the wind's blowing and they should be able to see that it's an American flag, that American artillery was still called in on Americans.
Well, let me just give you a little more information.
Here recently,
there's just a little more information, if you'd like it. Because this I have studied quite a bit. I haven't just, I've studied it a lot. I've interviewed a lot of the survivors. Why don't I just concede that mistakes happen on the field of battle? But when was this? Well,
was this during the 48 war?
This isn't something to concede. It's a very important topic to these
but
veterans and their daughters, their sons, their wives.
What time?
It happened in 1967. And these crew members have been trying...
So was there a war going on at the time?
67.
It was the Six-Day War. As you'll recall, we were not in that war. We were an American ship in international waters.
Right.
That was attacked by the Israeli Air Force
and how many armies were attacking Israel at the time?
Israel initiated the Six-Day War. Israel attacked Egypt and Syria.
Israel attacked Egypt and Syria?
Yeah.
Well, that's not what I understand about it, but you obviously have another account.
No, that's the account.
Well, it's not what the UN says.
It is. Actually, at the time, Israel was trying to tell people that they had been attacked. Their ambassador was even telling the U.S. that they had been attacked by Egypt. However, it is not disputed that Israel initiated the attack. It wiped out the Egyptian Air Force on the ground. It was a dawn attack. The details are well known. And it was Israel that initiated the attack. It's not disputed even by Israel any longer.
Well, I'm certainly not aware of that. But I do know that there's a great deal of tension in the area, and that in 48 there were, 4 or 5 armies that attacked Israel?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another one of the myths that we've all grown up with. And what happened is in 1947, the UN passed a partition recommendation in which 55% of Palestine would be given to a Jewish state. And the indigenous Palestinians would get 45% of their own land. That was passed in about November of 1947. It was a recommendation. It doesn't have any force of law. And the reason it was passed was actually a great deal of bribes and threats by Zionists, even people like Felix Frankfurter. Again, all of this is well documented. I've been reading recently the State Department history on it.
I know that it's just like, Russia had an account of how they wound up where they were at. But a person, all they have to do if they visit the area, was an American really can just go on Google and look down at little old Israel and look at where the borders are and go, how come it's all green in one spot and nothing's been accomplished in the other spot? Why would that be?
Well, I can answer that question.
I'm curious.
But let me answer your first one, because I don't know if you're wanting to hear the answers, because I came into this, I'm not Palestinian or Muslim or Arab. So I'm an objective, neutral observer and now student who's been studying this for 10 years, have gone over numerous times. I'm a journalist. I've interviewed people. And what happened in 1947 is after this was passed, there was a great deal of violence. As I expect you know, there had already been violence since the beginning of the Zionist project in the early 1900s. It actually began before that, but it didn't begin in large numbers.
I think guaranteed that Israel would have that space.
No, it didn't.
Here's the thing.
Let me finish. If I could just finish one.
Israeli Arabs have you ever spoke with?
A lot.
Me too.
And
you don't find them racing to go into the West Bank or go to Egypt or go to Syria?
You never. Let me finish. Let me finish, Joe. What happened is hundreds of thousands of people were ethnically cleansed. Men, women, and children, mostly women and children, were pushed out ruthlessly.
Hundreds of thousands?
Yes. Oh, yes. It was 200,000 at least.
So many Arab Israelis today.
You don't even. Wait a minute. Let me ask you a question.
What are they doing in the city in the Knesset?
They are the Arab Israelis, as you call them,
right,
are Palestinians who managed to stay within what is now Israel.
They were invited to stay.
No, they weren't. These are, we're just hearing one myth after another myth after another myth.
Have you ever been to the Arab market in Jerusalem?
Yes, I have.
Those people are making money and having fun.
This is what the South used to say about African Americans.
No, I don't think they ever said that.
Yeah, they said that type of thing. They said, they were happy on those plantations.
You don't find anybody trying to break in to the West Bank. You don't find anybody trying to work their way into Lebanon right now with Hamas.
Is trying to put them in the West Bank, is trying to push them out. People don't want to leave their homes. That's true. Most people want to stay in their homes.
I don't think they should leave.
However, 750,000 were ethnically cleansed in the years 47 and 48. The ethnic cleansing increased over the coming decades. It occurred again in 1967, when another 200,000 were pushed out.
That is so preposterous, frankly. I mean, if you had a Life magazine, because there's plenty of reporters from Life and Look magazine that were there during those years.
That's right. One of them was Dorothy Thompson.
And if you have an article or something from Life magazine, Newsweek, some reputable source.
Yes, this has all been documented. It was documented at the time. One of the people who wrote about it, who tried to write about it quite a bit in the early 1950s, about all these refugees that had been pushed out, was a woman named Dorothy Thompson. She used to be extremely famous. The Britannica calls her one of the most important female journalists of the 20th century.
So I'm trying
she
to get
wrote
to
about
your point. What is your
my point is, I would like to finish one sentence if I could.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not here to listen to an indictment. I'm trying to. I was told that we were going to talk about the opportunity and the desire for peace, and I know that there is a big desire for peace on the part of the Israeli citizens.
Well, I think there is among some of them. Certainly among Palestinians are desperate for peace, since they're being killed in such large numbers and injured in far larger numbers. To reach peace, you of course need to know the history. We're just talking about the last century, and most of what happened within my lifetime, within the last 60-some years. And yet, your understanding of it is really the opposite of what happened. So if there's that kind of chasm, where one population has no idea of what even happened and thinks it's the reverse of what happened, you cannot reach peace if that's the situation. It's very important to know what happened.
There's two versions of the story.
But
there's one objective reality.
Here's the thing: there's always
surprised that the dialogue was a little bit tough. It wasn't.
Well, I had a feeling you wouldn't.
The idea is to know a little bit about the topic, because most of the people doesn't know exactly what's happening there.
Because
the version of the news from the other side of the world, or particularly controlled by Israel, or the people who help Israel, is something, but the story of the people there on reality is something else, for sure.
What's interesting is even in Israel, they don't actually say most of these things any longer.
Let's start to explain it.
Here's a point I'd like to make. Things happen in the world, and things happen to us in the world.
Yes.
And the most important thing is the story we tell ourselves. We can tell all kinds of stories about others. But until we take responsibility for where we're at and get started from wherever we're at, whether we're at ground zero, whether we're in a hole like our country's financial situation right now, or whether we're sitting on top of the world in a position to help others. The point is simply...
keep this topic for next part. Let's have break and come back and start with this topic.
Okay.
We will be back soon.
All right.
Watching The Lighthouse for today's viewers, brought to you by oneworldforyou.org.
So before the break, we were talking about certain situation between Palestinian and Israeli. It's not clear for us, at least at this moment. Let's Miss Alison and Mr. Joe continue find out what it was, the question, and how the answer will be.
Okay, and objective history is clear. So it is possible for us to know these things. Ancient archaeology can be very difficult, but something that happened within the past 60 years within the memory of people is well known, and it's been documented by many excellent historians, some of the best ones the Israeli historians. So it's very possible to know these things. But what we'll ask now, I think the reason Joe was asked to be on the program is he spent 3 days, as I understand it, in the West Bank.
Yes.
Who was it that took you on this tour?
It was a tour company.
A tour company.
Yeah.
Okay. So this will be interesting to see what a tour company told you and showed you.
I was just amazed at the amount of land that's there. I mean, I had always seen pictures of Ramallah and what's the other big city that's in the West Bank?
Jenin, Nablus,
Jenin.
Hebron.
Hebron's the other one. Where it looks like people are absolutely crammed together, and yet there's all this empty land.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me as a Californian who lives in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me there's all kinds of land to improve, plant orchards, plant grapes, plant olive groves, have a life for yourself. This idea of waiting for repatriation or anything else, it's the waiting that would drive me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Joe, that's interesting because did they not show you that there are checkpoints that prevent people from getting to that land?
You mean they can't get out of Ramallah?
Many times they cannot. There are checkpoints that surround these different cities.
Because I saw, Arabs driving all over the place. Palestinians driving all over the place.
Have you asked this land belong to who? Who owns this land? Who is in charge, or who is the one can benefit from that? Did you ask this question over there?
No, I didn't.
It might be
but
under
there's just
control
thousands and thousands of hectares of land
there. It might be
there
under
that
Israeli control. It's not their land.
Yeah, but why
it
would
might be there is no water there. It might be somehow something hold them back to not use it. Otherwise, it should be used.
Well, water is a big issue in that part of the world, and obviously it's a huge issue in that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I've talked to agronomy students that have told me. I mean, I know one that's in Tuscany right now, showing the Italians how to more efficiently use water, and they said they were eager to help the Palestinians in the West Bank.
Palestinians teach people. They can teach people how to plant, how to do
make water do 3 or 4 times its job.
Well, a great deal of the water, the aquifer in the West Bank and in Gaza, has been depleted because it's. Since you did go to Israel, how much time did you spend in Israel?
A couple weeks.
Okay, so you spent a few weeks. You notice there's a lot of green grass there, for example.
Yeah, not a lot of green grass, but there's a lot of orchards.
Pools.
Yeah, I saw a lot of green grass too. I went to big parks full of green grass. Yeah. Well, the water's being taken largely from the Jordan River and from under the West Bank and Gaza. That's why when you look at a map of the West Bank, if you've looked at a map, you'll see, first of all, that most of the Palestinian-controlled areas are very small. Those areas are very small. They're Ramallah, Jenin, Nablus, Hebron. That's Bethlehem. That's about it. The other areas are controlled by Israel. So the empty land that you saw was controlled by Israel, not by the Palestinians. Secondly, where you'll notice that the major Israeli settlements are, and that's where the wall is sort of dipping in and taking still more Palestinian land. As you probably know, the wall is being built on Palestinian land.
I think that the wall is a horrible thing, but I think having people bomb public areas and blow their children up is a horrible thing too.
It is.
I mean, it's a horrible thing. And the wall's a horrible thing. I mean, there was just an article in the Wall Street Journal in the last week that talked about why the United States needs Israel. And the reason they need Israel is because last year Israel had more patents issued than the United States did, and the majority of those patents the work comes to fruition here in the United States.
Joe,
they're an economic engine.
Israel,
they need those. They need the Palestinians.
You know, I've just been reading, studying dozens and dozens of books by the State Department, by economists, by Pentagon experts, from early on, saying that Israel would be and is such a liability to the United States. It's a massive liability. It's stolen a lot of our technology. They have consistently gotten massive amounts of money from the U.S. And the first, let me just finish this. They've cost us $3 trillion. They've cost Americans $3 trillion. This is for a population that has been under 6 million most of the time. It's been 3 or 4 million. It's now peaked at just barely over 7 million. And it's received in 1950 to 53. It got, I believe it was, had a population of about a million people. It got $1.5 billion of American money.
Okay.
So it's gotten massive amounts of money, and yet it's caused damage to us. It's caused hostility to us. It's stolen technology in a number of cases. Philip Giraldi, who's executive director of the Council for the National Interest, a former intelligence officer in the military and the CIA, has written about that quite a bit. The U.S. doesn't need Israel. Israel, as you pointed out, it has no oil, has no resources.
In the last 10 days...
We've propped it up for 60 years.
Well, in the last 10 days, in the Wall Street Journal, there was an article, if people want to Google it...
I'm not surprised. The Wall Street Journal is very pro-Israel.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is owned by a British guy who's not a friend of Israel. Mr. Murdoch is not a friend of Israel.
Mr. Murdoch is not British, and he is a friend of Israel.
Let me address a couple of things that you mentioned. It just, right now, the most powerful thing in the U.S. arsenal are these drones. And I happen to know that Israel provided our original drone technology. And we're lucky to have that edge at this moment. I mean, I'm not thrilled that we're in any wars in the Middle East at all. But the fact of the matter is that original drone technology came to the United States, and I happen to know some of the seed people that were involved in that. Matter of fact, I even know one of the people that's involved with the bodies of the things down there in our southern high desert to build the drones out of the carbon fiber. So, I mean, Israel has given a great deal to the United States, and certainly the United States has supported Israel.
We give Israel, right now, we give Israel $8.2 million per day at a time when our schools are underfunded, our veterans aren't getting the care that they need, old people are having problems.
I agree with you there.
We give Israel over $8 million per day. Then our Congress, because they need and want the Israel lobby so much, because the Israel lobby mobilizes massive amounts of money for Israel if you don't vote the way they want. So our Congress, both parties, voted another $200 million for Israel to develop a technology. This is a technology this is the Iron Dome technology. It's a missile interception technology. Our own companies already do that. So they are subsidizing other companies that will cost still more jobs to Americans. So more jobs will be lost to Americans, to Israel. And then someone like you will read in the Wall Street Journal, oh, look at this wonderful technology Israel developed. In reality, we pay for it. We give them things.
It was the number of patents.
The Navy tries to stop them. The Army tries to stop them. They go over their head to Congress. And Congress says, well, I've got an election coming up in 2 years, because every congressperson has to run for office every 2 years. And they realize, well, if I do something that the Israel lobby doesn't like, they will mobilize against me, I'll lose the election. So they vote them even more money, often than is even asked for. This is what they just did.
Most of the time, countries, when they get credits from the United States, it's not cash. It is credits to buy U.S. goods.
Yes, the one exception is Israel.
And one of the things I saw in the West Bank was a lot of American food with an American flag on it, including rice from this valley right here. Now, how does all that food, and I don't begrudge the Palestinians the food, I'm glad that they're getting the food. And I was proud to see that rice from Sacramento was being given to them. I don't know what the process is, how that
yeah, I can tell you.
Rice gets there, but it's a wonderful thing. Americans would like to help people any way they
Americans are very generous. We are very, very generous, and that's one of the things I'm very proud of our population about. Because of the lobby, we give Israel more money than we give to any other country on earth, even though it's one of the tiniest.
You're talking about real money, not credits.
For 60 years, we've been giving them all sorts of money. 63? We give them 63. We give them loans, and then they never pay them back because we forgive them. So someone like you will hear from these tour operators. They will say to you, Israel has paid back all of its loans. Well, that's like, let's say I lend my son $20, and then a week later I give him $20, and he gives it back to me. And I say, look at my wonderful son. He gives me back, every loan. Well, we give them the money, and they pay us back with our own money. Well, so Israel's this tiny place that gets this massive amount of money. Now, with that money, one of the things they have done is build up a military that's the 4th or 5th most powerful military on the planet. A tiny nation has a military that's 4th or 5th. Most people say 4th, but let's say 5th. Most powerful.
That's pretty hard to believe. I mean, you've got the French military, which is pretty incredible. I've worked with them. You've got the German military that's pretty incredible. That's my pad there.
I know. If I could borrow a piece of paper.
I mean, it's to say they're the 4th or 5th, you've got the Russians, the Chinese. I would say that the U.S. and China, that's 2. The Germans, the French have big armies and very powerful armies.
Mm-hmm. I was just looking at Jane's, which is the major military document. What I'm doing is making a list of these sort of simple facts that you think are wrong. You don't think that Israel invaded the other countries in the 6-Day War. You don't think that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were pushed out in 47 to 49, and you don't think
many of them were scared out, and the ones who stayed are happy they stayed.
Oh, so you do think hundreds of thousands?
Well, I don't know that there was hundreds of thousands. I don't know what the numbers were, but I know that the numbers that were actually in Palestine were much smaller than what we're told today.
I wonder, you see, what I'm doing is making a list here.
I mean, the bottom line
and then you can look at this later and decide.
Are you aware at present birth rates, Israel will be an Arab country in less than 20 years?
Let me ask you a question.
He has a point he told me about. That's why I want him to talk about it in details next segment.
Here's the thing. Whatever's going to happen, people just need to get on with their lives.
Well,
I heard the comment from him.
Joe, we keep hearing that. We keep hearing that. But we do think it's important to keep remembering frequently the Nazi Holocaust against Jews. So we need to hear about everything.
We're not losing sleep.
We need to hear about everything.
We're not losing sleep over the Germans at night.
In the next segment.
Okay, so I guess
when we have that dialogue typed going fast, so a lot of details. But let's go back to break, then we'll talk about it.
OneWorldForYou.org, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
It seems like there are a lot of questions, the answer unknown yet, but also there are a lot of information unknown for our guest Joe. So Alison tried to shed some light about topics she knows about it, and I would like to know also from Joe what he knows about. So let's go back to the dialogue.
What I was trying to get to about the military, the Israeli military being so powerful, and it is my information, and everybody that I've seen said that it's the 4th or 5th most powerful military on the planet. So you can look into that and maybe come back and tell us that I'm wrong, show me the source.
It might be the 7th or 8th, something like that.
Those are points. We'll come back and do another show.
So how many people do you think were killed in Gaza, in the Gaza invasion a few years ago?
Oh, after all the rocket attacks?
How many people have the rocket attacks killed?
Well, I know people who were in a position to look at Gaza where the rocket installations were, and why would they put them so near preschools and daycare.
Well, I'm
and
glad
all
you've
that.
asked that question because I can answer it.
We find that
Because,
I have been in Gaza. I have been in Gaza.
A lot of
And the
counter-fire
fact is that
automatic.
Gaza is one of the most densely
It looks like.
populated places around. It's 1.5 million people that are being imprisoned by Israel. They can't leave or come back without Israel giving them permission to do. They're small
They
children.
have an open border with Egypt, don't they?
No, they don't.
Why would the Egyptians not allow them to come and go? What have the Egyptians got against the Palestinians?
Joe, I was hoping I could finish some of these sentences I'm trying to start. So it's interesting as I start to answer, as I answer one
they're being
question.
imprisoned, but they have this huge border with Egypt, so what you've said is not
They
true.
don't- well, first
it's
of all-
actually not true.
First of all, it's not a huge border. Have you looked at the map? Have you been there?
No, I have not, but I have looked at the map.
Okay, then
And
you notice.
I Googled
then
it.
I don't know if I would call. Look at California. California has a border with the Pacific. It has Nevada. It has mainly Nevada, I guess. It has Oregon, and it has Mexico.
Right.
Now, what if we could only go in and out through Mexico? Would we be pleased with that?
Well, we could.
What if we could only go in and out through Mexico? We couldn't use our vast coast. We couldn't go to the east. We couldn't fly out. We couldn't fly in. We couldn't go north. We couldn't go any of those directions. We couldn't say, well, I think I'll get on a flight and visit my family that lives somewhere else, or go on a vacation.
So they're not able to go to Cairo Airport? I've flown in and out of Cairo Airport.
No, here's the situation. There are 3 borders. So in other words, it's over 3/4. It's probably 9/10 of the borders are controlled directly by Israel. They don't let people go in and out at all. Now, the seacoast should not be patrolled by Israel. That's not Israeli water. That's Gazan water. But Israel patrols that too. They shell regularly. When you're in Gaza, you can see Israeli Navy ships out there. They shell people. There are Gazan fishermen that try to go out and fish, and they get shelled and shot by Israeli forces frequently. Every so often, the Israeli forces take one of these fishing boats. Sometimes they give it back, sometimes they don't. They have control over that. Now Egypt used to be completely sealed off too, because under a Mubarak, right, who was bought off by a lot of money to Egypt too, that was an arrangement made decades ago as a way of buying Israel off from Egypt off from supporting Palestinian rights. So we bought off Egypt,
so, I mean,
and we said, "Let me finish." We bought off Egypt, and we gave them
time up. We need a stopwatch because you're hogging all the time.
Well, you
said you wanted to finish one sentence, and you've gone on for 5 minutes.
You have
now.
5 different questions, so I have a lot to address here.
I ask you quite simply.
Here's the answer.
Why don't the Egyptians allow the Palestinians to come and go?
This thin border now, they do let them come and go some of the time. Right now, Egypt, as you know, is trying to put itself back together after this despotic rule by Mubarak, who is propped up by Israel and the U.S. They finally overthrew him. Now they are trying to put their country back in order. It's very difficult, and they do open the border some of the time, so it's open much more than it was before.
Egypt seemed like a pretty nice country to me, and the people are very friendly.
But there is Camp David deal. Stop Egypt from doing anything between Arab and Israeli will be conflict.
Well, Camp David, the agreement was signed there by Anwar Sadat.
That's what I'm saying.
And of course, they murdered Sadat later as a result of that.
They bought Egypt out of the Arab world to help.
The deal was
they controlled the peace
for
Israel.
If Sadat would agree to stop supporting Palestinian rights, to go back to their homes, which all refugees on earth, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. All refugees on earth have the right, the humanitarian right, to return to their homes. The only exception is that Israel does not let non-Jewish refugees come back to Israel, Christians and Muslims.
There's big hunks of Germany still in Poland. There's hunks of Germany
so
still
what
in
happened
France.
with
You've never
Sadat?
heard of Alsace-Lorraine?
What happened with Sadat was that he was trying, everybody has tried to make peace with Israel for decades. The Palestinians have tried year after year. These other places tried to also.
Wait a minute, what happened when Clinton had Arafat there?
That's right.
And they all thought they had a deal, and Arafat pulled out.
That's not what happened. What happened is that Israel was the so-called deal, the generous offer that you have probably read about from the Wall Street Journal and from Israel, consisted of Palestinians getting non-connected Bantustans, no control of their exterior borders. So in other words, they couldn't go in and out of their own country without Israel letting them in and out. They didn't have control of their own airspace.
You know what, it's sad, but I'm sure that Israel wants to check what's coming and going.
Well, I'm sorry, but the U.S. would not let some other country control our borders.
That Israel has been rocketed many hundreds of times? This is news to you, or you
Joe, let me tell you, no, it isn't. In fact, I've studied that quite a bit. And what has happened is the rockets began. I was in Gaza in 2001. I can show you what it looked like then. There were already whole destroyed neighborhoods. There were children in hospitals who'd been shot by Israeli bullets. I'd be happy to show you their pictures.
You know what? I'm sure.
And
again,
guess what?
I've already
and guess what?
stipulated.
No rockets had been fired out yet, even though the town of Khan Yunis, parts of it were in ruins, parts of Rafah were in ruins, children were in hospitals, but no rockets had been fired out yet. And yet Israeli forces had invaded, had shelled, had killed people.
Left Gaza.
So this was in 2001.
When did Israel leave?
Let me finish. You ask a question, but I think you're afraid you'll hear a factual answer, and then you jump to the next one. So here's the factual answer.
Israel
after these numerous invasions and killings of women and children, closing it off, even then you couldn't get it. This was before Hamas. You still couldn't get in and out very easily at all. Most goods, they were out of goods in the markets. I went there. I tried to buy batteries. I couldn't even buy batteries for my camera that would work. So that's what it was like. Then eventually some people, when they are under siege, just like under the Nazis, people fight back. Some people fight back. Usually young men are the ones that did it. So some started to fight back, and some started making homemade rockets. So since that time, since about 2002, I believe it is, these people have been making homemade rockets at great risk to themselves.
Well,
a lot have gotten
they're
killed.
not homemade rockets.
Yes, they're homemade rockets. 98% of them are homemade rockets. They fire them. They usually don't hit anybody or anything. They don't kill anybody. So thousands have been shot. A total of 18 people have been killed. That's 18 tragic deaths. Israel killed more than 18 people in a few minutes. When they invaded, in just one shot.
Here's the thing: Israel doesn't. No, fighting wars is stupid, and I mean stupid.
And yet Israel has initiated every war except one.
That's nonsense.
It's initiated
it's nonsense.
Every war except one, Joe. These
what
are
was
the
going
facts.
on in 1948?
In 1948, they initiated that war.
Where did all those Arab armies come from? They happened to be in the neighborhood. They just thought that they would. I mean, my God!
During the break,
you are funny.
During the break, we just told you about Deir Yassin, which apparently you hadn't heard about before.
No, but I am aware that a great number of horrible things happen on both sides when a war starts.
Let me fill you in on that. 16 massacres. Deir Yassin was one.
Look, if we can't do something about an equitable sharing of time. I mean, that's just fairness.
I have a fine
show. We are talking about our show now.
That's
Give him some time to talk.
Well, all I have to say is that my experiences there were that I met a lot of nice people. To the extent that hate and anger are entertained, people put their lives on hold. You mentioned 60-some years. Most people, the work that needs to be done is in here, not out there. And if I want to blame the president or the Congress or whomever for the economic circumstances, I can't control them. What I can control is me. And invariably, everything begins with the individual. Now, if there are people, as you've told me, that they can't get out of Ramallah, they can't buy land, they can't start trying to farm, well, that needs to change. But the people, the Palestinians, need need to approach the American public and the world public and say, you know, we just want to get some land so we can plant some olive trees. And we just want to get some land so we can plant some plum trees. And, you know, to have a life. But what I saw,
and that's what they're doing,
was food just like I see in welfare states all over the world, and blame like I see all over the world. And when people don't take responsibility for themselves and they want to blame everybody else for their circumstance without taking charge of it themselves, I mean, even in the cities, people can plant gardens. I mean, they're flushing their toilets.
Actually, often they don't have the water to do that.
Well, listen,
Joe,
let me share one
these are
thing.
nice,
This is what
simple
happened to me.
homilies, but they're just not true.
This is what happened. Well, I said from the very beginning that my knowledge is all anecdotal.
3 days worth.
Well, that's the West Bank. I spent one day in Bethlehem, and
Which
I was
is
with
the West Bank.
I was with a group of Christians because none of we had already gone back into Israel, and then there was this chance to go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and the group was mostly Christian, and the few Jews, nobody else wanted to go, but I said, well, heck, I'll definitely go. We wound up in a restaurant after visiting first we were at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There was a Christian wedding next door. The Christians not only invited us all in, of course, again, I was with a group of Christians, but they all but begged the people to have the Israelis come back and take control of Bethlehem. Okay? While I was at a restaurant, again with a group of Christians, the Arab restaurateur, he said a very nasty thing about the Jews. But he said those blankety blank Jews weren't as bad as the extortionists that I live with today. So people are charging him money for protection. And we've had this in our own country, in Chicago and other places. But to have a gangster government.
So I'm curious, Joe, do you think that Israel has no responsibility for anything that it's done?
Well, I think that to the extent that the people of Israel are willing to help the Palestinians, when the Palestinians genuinely want peace, and when they approach the world with a desire for peace.
We'll keep your comment. Yeah, we'll keep your comment for the last segment, please. So we'll be back soon. Before the break, that question from Joe, Alison will have an answer for. Let her give us the answer, then we'll go from there.
Just to mention, I've also been in Bethlehem quite a few times, and I didn't go on a guided tour. Because as we know, with guided tours, they show you what they want, they take you to the restaurant they want, it's all scripted largely. Instead, I go by myself. Wander around.
Did you go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre?
That's in Jerusalem, and I did.
No,
I also went to the manger.
Oh, that's it, the manger, thank you.
That's right, yes, I certainly, you know, I am Christian, and I went there.
So you walk right by the post office there?
So I went
to get to that church, you walk by the post office.
I've been to Bethlehem, and by
when
myself.
You look inside, you see on the wall these people
Joe,
with
do you
the
think just by
bandoliers and the machine guns and mask on, like they're a batch of murderers
well, you know
in
what
the post office.
Wait, are you talking about pictures or people?
Posters.
Oh, posters. You know what those posters usually are? Do you know what those are?
I don't know. It looked like
well, let me tell you.
It didn't say wanted on them. It sounded like they was like these people were being pictured as heroes.
Yeah, usually they're people that have been killed. There are posters all over Gaza and the West Bank. Usually you do see the face, but they like to look, you know, young men.
They like to look like they're evil and bad.
Young men
going to terrify somebody.
Don't like to look weak. Young men like to look strong.
Well, strength comes from in here. It doesn't come from weapons and bullets and things of that nature.
Well, it's easy to say from the comfort of your chair. If you were in
Wait a minute,
Gaza where you were starving right now,
you would
have
war,
it
so
more
I know what it
difficult.
is to have somebody pull a gun on me and stick it in my
And
face.
yet you've served in time of war, and yet you don't even support your fellow veterans on the USS Liberty. I just find that so disappointing.
It's not even a matter of support. I don't know the whole story, and I do know that there's been more than 1,000 people hurt by friendly fire in these most two recent conflicts.
Joe, then will you join me in one thing? These veterans are asking for an honest, open investigation of the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty. Will you join me in asking for that?
Well, there should be an investigation. The Navy, I'm sure, has done an investigation. Was the ship sunk?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't sunk, so it was strafed or something like that.
It was shelled,
here you're telling me they've got
torpedoed.
The fourth largest, most powerful Army, Air Force in the world.
Military.
And they can't sink a little ship?
A U.S. Navy ship? We're the first most powerful.
Yeah, but
do you think it's easy
you're telling me that this is, I don't even know what kind of ship it was, but a U.S. ship returns fire when it's fired upon.
Let me ask you a question. I don't understand. Is it that you don't think they did this?
No, I'm not. Again, I didn't come here to talk about.
Or you don't think they meant to do it?
I don't. Well, I wouldn't think they meant to do it. What would they have to gain by it?
All I asked was, well, you wouldn't want me to answer it, so I won't try to. But what I'm trying to get from you is, as Americans, and as people connected to the military,
sure.
I believe that our veterans have the right today of an honest, open, thorough investigation of the Israeli attack on the USS Liberty, and these veterans have the right to tell their stories. Do you agree with me?
Or
yes or no? Yes or no?
Well, I would think that if the Navy hasn't done an investigation, one should be done, yes.
Good, that's a yes. Now, let me do your Zionist homework for you. They would say that they have done 11 investigations. That would be false.
So you're saying that the United States Navy has lied 11 times?
No, the Navy doesn't say that. This is what Zionists say.
Well, wait a minute. I've said the United States Navy should do an investigation.
Yes.
And when one of their ships is attacked, they routinely do an investigation.
Yes, and how long would that investigation usually take? I'll tell you, 6 months.
That's what I was going to say.
That they gave 1 week.
Okay.
So they did a 1 week investigation in which they investigated how the crew performed under fire, how the captain performed under fire. That was the purpose of their investigation. They did it in 1 week. That is the only time there has been one. Now, a great many crew members tried to testify and were not allowed to. Even they issued an 80-page report.
Well, look,
the 80-page report.
You know,
again, you don't want to know, so I
believe if there's a war going on, that things happen.
But you've agreed with me there should be an investigation.
If the Navy only did a 1 week investigation, that seems weak to me. If that's the case, I'm certain that these individuals who are on the ship have probably been interviewed by someone like you or some other third party. It's just like so many things today. People go in afterwards. My point in coming here was to say that I know that there's a great deal of goodwill on the part of the Israelis. I know that, you know, you talk about the most power or how powerful.
Do you not think on the Palestinian? Let me just ask though. Do you also acknowledge on the Palestinian part too that both have goodwill? Do you acknowledge that?
I'm seeing more and more of that. I'm seeing more and more of that.
Good. So both parties. But there's a lot of goodwill.
When I find that. You know, again, I read in the Wall Street Journal that Arafat's wife has got $17 million in the bank there with her chateau in the south of France after he dies, and
did you read about Netanyahu's wife?
That's the only
who also has that type of thing.
Well, that's the only money they could find. This is somebody who's supposed to be leading the people, but you know, the key is. What we do in here, you talk about a powerful military. If you approach the American people with your heart,
which they have done.
Let's remember that Mahatma Gandhi brought the most powerful nation the world has ever known. The sun never sat on the Union Jack. He brought the British Empire to its knees by starving himself.
And by nonviolent movements.
By nonviolence,
Guess
absolutely.
what? Let me tell you something. There are numerous hunger strikes in Palestine, in the West Bank, and in Gaza. Every week, there are 2 or 3, at least, nonviolent demonstrations patterned
And
after
you know what?
Gandhi.
I believe you.
You don't believe?
No, I do believe
Okay.
you.
So
why do they have a situation? Well, we know why. It's always power and money. When you
Wait a
see
minute.
these guys
So-
marching up and down, death to Israel, death to the U.S., death, murder the Americans, get rid of.
that's not what you
know
hear.
That is
not
a
what
very
you hear.
small part of the people that are
let me get
interested
involved.
in hate and murder. And I believe that there are people genuinely interested in kindness and helping others and doing the right thing, because guess what? That's where the genius is. Not in murder, not in weapons, not in bullets.
Then why does
It's
Israel...
in planting crops.
Joe, let me just tell you
let me
something.
get involved a little
Joe,
bit.
Israel has killed 6 or 7 times more civilians than Palestinians. When will they find it in their heart to change?
More Palestinians than what? Than Palestinians?
Then Palestinians have killed Israelis 6 or 7 times more just in the last 10 years, 10 or 11 years.
If that's actually the case,
It is the case.
I can tell you that there would be there's no pride. Nobody cares. This is so stupid. It's beyond belief that anybody wants to keep fighting and hurting each other.
We got something.
We're on the verge of. Here's the thing I see that's dangerous for the Palestinians and for all the Arabs, really. They're getting left behind. The world is moving so fast. We're on the verge of having a traveling wave nuclear reactor.
And they are getting...
That's a good point. That's a good point.
We can desalinate water, and we can pump water to the whole West Bank. The whole darn thing could be green and growing.
You know what we
but
could
if we
do?
don't prepare for the future, and all we do is worry about the past, you're not going to have anything when the time
We need
comes.
another show for sure.
The
but
World
let me
Bank
get
has done
involved with the last
studies
minutes.
about the Palestinian population. The World Bank has done studies showing that they were extremely entrepreneurial and effective.
I think there are.
What has happened, and this is also coming from the World Bank, is that Israeli policies have intentionally retarded and prevented the economic development of the West Bank and of Gaza.
Do you have
These
any
are the
children?
facts. I have 3 children, and
Do you
I
think
have
I
4
could retard
grandchildren.
your children for you?
If you
Do you think I could retard your children for you?
If you prevented enough food from getting to their bellies,
Wait a minute, I've seen
stunting.
food by the pallets
You would cause
with American flags on it.
Let me ask you, Joe.
Yeah.
To begin with, do you think Palestinians are strong enough to fight Israel?
Well, I
don't
think their military is, and I think they're fighting stupid anyway.
Stupid anyway.
But then why is your fight
Put yourself, forget that you are Jews and you are fighting or thinking of Israel. Put yourself.
I'm thinking of the whole area.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? The whole world wants to go there and spend money.
Let's let her finish.
Wait. Put yourself in the place of Palestinians. Think that you are Palestinian. You live there. The name of the land is Palestine. People in that land, Jews, Christian, Muslim, they live together. No name specifically for religion or something. It is Palestine for all. Jesus born there.
Right.
People thousands years live there. When somebody comes to you and say, God gave me this land, I will kick you out and take it. To me, I am Palestinian. I will ask myself, do you think I am the God to give the land again back to the person? I'm not God. If God gave the land, God will bring it back peacefully. Second, if you live in this land and somebody with tanks and things came and fight you and kick you out, no matter what is the way, kick you out. It happened that kick people out to empty the place to live there. You will be happy to go to another place. Your food on the stove, your kids in the school, your husband, her husband at work, and they left by thousands because of stories inside with details we cannot address it now. Yeah. But as a person live there, you took your family and left. you will love those people? They came to kill you. They came to harm you. You didn't harm them. You are there. You live there. Then, those Palestinians, are they responsible for the Holocaust? Does they harm the Jews to begin with? They were living in peace together. Muslim married Jews women normally because they call it Ahlul Kitab, right. the book, the Bible, sure. Abraham,
right.
Religious. There is no definition between religion for God.
They're all Semitic people.
So living happily as a human being with your neighbor, this is normal way in Palestine. They came against God. Well, God in Bible, God in Torah says if you kill one person with no reason, you kill the world. Sure. Okay, if Israel came as a religious promise from God, how come they do against God? Well, to begin with, kill people.
Well,
the whole building of Israel is wrong. Injustice and people...
Hey, look, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking that if we could just get all the Jews to come over here, and I know Europe would like to get rid of all of their Arabs, send them over there.
Okay.
We would have a huge economic engine.
Let's talk about it.
I mean, I just think that fighting is stupid.
You have a great idea, but to begin with, fighting is stupid.
Yeah.
And military support is stupid also.
Sure it is.
Because in my opinion, we can, from heart as humanship, from our heart, if we love each other, we can help each other. But if you came and kill me, my heart will not be easy to say, yes, I love you, sir.
No, I know that.
You kill my son in my lab. You kill my daughter in her way. You destroy this. It is hard.
I understand that. I go to Germany and I don't lose sleep at night when I'm in Germany. I realize that the people were very misled, and I don't lose sleep about Germans.
Yes.
I have quite a few ethnic.
But to me, again, with our heart for peace, with love, we can control the situation and we can live happily, but with justice. If there is no justice, there is no peace. All what they need, good life.
I mean, here's the thing: there's some things you're not gonna get. As I mentioned earlier, Israel's going to be an Arab country in about 18 years at present birth rates, anyway. So, how are they preparing for the future? I mean, that's the key. Everything that's gone before has gone before. The preparations need to be made for a future. The whole world wants to go to the Middle East and spend money. Whether they're Christian, Jewish, Muslim,
it's a holy land.
They all want to go there and spend money
for everybody
and have a good time, and it's sharing the culture. I mean, I was dancing with Sufis on the Nile River here a year and a half ago.
I agree with you. His question needs another show. Do you mind if we come some other time to explain other things or talk about maybe he searched a little bit or he
maybe he can look at these items and see if he...
I'll be glad to. Like I said,
I enjoy... I felt bad because it wasn't planned this way, but I enjoyed the conversation and the result of what we're talking about with love and peace, everything possible. And maybe next show is coming soon, and maybe Mr. Joe will have some research and have some answers for questions, and Miss Alison also will bring us some information, share up a little bit, and let us work together with love and peace, for peace in that holy land, for love for all.
Amen.
And hoping that to pray together in that holy land, all religious at once.
Amen.
Without discrimination.
Without discrimination,
Amen.
with justice. Without justice, no love, no peace. So with this message, I'll let you go. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Very good.